Jen, it's so great to have you on the Nothing is Wasted podcast. Thanks for joining me.
No, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, your family, your life, where you live? Just kind of tell us a little bit about Jenn Tucker right now, and then we'll dive back into your story a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, my name's Jennifer, but you can call me Jen. My story. I grew up a military kid, so I grew up all over the place, but I've lived here in Georgia for over 20 years now. Married with my husband. We met senior year of high school. I moved here senior year of high school. We met, got married 4 years later after college, started a family. I have two girls who are now 17 and 19 years old, one in college,
Ooh.
Yeah.
You're getting ready to shove them out to college. Oh my God. Well, I guess you said one is in college.
Yeah.
Man.
So, yeah. And I started out as an elementary school teacher for a few years. That was my dream growing up, to teach. And I did until I had my two girls, and I left teaching to focus on being a mom, ended up working in preschool ministry at our church for a while. Stepped down from that for a multitude of family reasons, and then somehow stumbled my way into the world of graphic design and illustration and hand lettering stuff. So art and that type of thing is kind of where my wheelhouse is nowadays, probably for the past almost 10 years now. I do a lot of behind the scenes stuff with different authors doing graphic design and stuff. I never ever dreamed that I'd be an author of a book or anything like that. It's if I told you the details of how things unfolded, it's only God, only Him could write the story that's been written, especially these past few years. I just can't get over it. I just, it's just neat. So yeah, I do a lot of graphic design and illustrations, and that's kind of more my thing. But the last few years has dove us way deep in the world of mental health, and lots of struggles and lots of hard things that we've walked through. So yeah, that's where I am now, is just kind of stumbling a bit through the dark and making our way one day at a time.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we are at Nothing is Wasted obsessed with those kinds of stories where you're just like in awe of God. You're just like, God, I don't know how, because it's testament to the fact that we're in situations in life where we cannot see a way out of it, and yet God proves Himself to be a rescuer, a restorer, a redeemer. And so I can sense that even as you're talking about this, that it's kind of hitting you a little bit. This has been quite a journey. It's been quite a journey. I'd love for you to share with us a little bit about where you would say kind of that journey started for you guys, this dark night of the soul, I guess you could call it.
Well, I'd say it really started hard 4 years ago. My daughter, my youngest, who was 13 at the time, began having panic attacks. It was her first day of 8th grade, and came home, and a lot of what had happened through her middle school experience kind of all snowballed and came together into it became more than she could bear. And she had her first major panic attack. I was terrified. I didn't know what it was, what was happening, what was wrong. The next morning, trying to take her to school, she was hyperventilating and could not get out of the car. And I took her to the doctor, and so began our journey of figuring out how to help her and how to work through this and walk through this. She was diagnosed shortly after with generalized anxiety disorder. Panic attacks were her big struggle. She had multiple a week, then it became multiple a day. So panic disorder became on the thing. And then through the years, multiple diagnoses have been added, multiple different, just as soon as I think we get one thing figured out, something else becomes hard.
Yeah.
So walking with her through the world of mental health, especially as a Christian, it has been for me, it's nothing I would have chosen for us. It's never anything I would have chosen for her. However, God has been so good to us through it. And it's hard for me. It's really hard to articulate what He's taught me and how He's grown me through this. Kind of stripped me bare. It definitely has been a winter of the soul where everything was stripped completely bare. I felt so broken, so helpless, so it's just been a tough road of a lot of ups and downs. And if I'm honest, we are still very much walking through it, with some new struggles and some new things. But in the process of helping her learn about her anxiety and managing her anxiety in healthy ways, I had to get real honest with myself about my own struggles with anxiety and recognize those symptoms and signs within myself and how I was managing them in not so healthy ways. And I was kind of avoiding anxiety, pushing it to the side, denying that I had it. For me, it's more a high functioning type of anxiety where it manifests more with a lot of overworking, extreme people pleasing, perfectionism, to the extreme. I have to control every little thing in my life, planning, making lists, to try to avoid unknown thing that may happen that may cause me stress or these feelings of anxiety. And if I look back, I've been that way my whole life, but I didn't name it anxiety for a very, very long time. And I think a lot of it's because there was a lot of shame surrounding it for me, a lot of guilt surrounding it for me. I grew up in the church. I love Jesus with all my heart. But you read verses like, be anxious for nothing. Don't worry about anything. Do not fear. Don't be afraid. And I couldn't reconcile how I was feeling with what Scripture said. And I'm like, but I still feel anxious. I'm still worried. I'm still afraid. I read my Bible. I pray. I do all the things that they tell me to do, but I'm still struggling. What's wrong with me? What am I doing wrong in my faith? I must not trust God enough. I must not be praying right or praying enough, or I must not.
Just further feeds that anxiety.
So I had internalized a lot of shame and guilt over it, to the point that I just ignored it, which is not healthy, by the way. Do not ignore your anxiety. Because it will not. It doesn't serve you well to ignore it. But it wasn't until really we were intentionally helping my daughter walk through hers, which she has a diagnosed anxiety disorder, which I will say is it's a different thing than just your everyday anxiety. Right. So walking with her through that, learning what anxiety is, learning how it processes in the body, how it's our body's stress response, how our nervous system gets dysregulated, and how to kind of help it re-regulate. And we've been through so much therapy and different doctors and psychiatrists, and the journey we've walked has been really, really hard. And I read a quote once, or heard it once, that says, you either learn enough that you want to change, or you hurt enough that you have to change. And I feel like we fall more on the hurt enough that you have to change side. So we've gone through a lot of hurt and a lot of hard things to get us to where we are now, to get me where I am now. But I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I wouldn't wish to do it again, but I wouldn't trade it for anything, because I wouldn't be who I am today if it weren't for this journey we've been walking on. I wouldn't understand what others might be going through, have more empathy for those who are struggling in this area that I never even considered. The whole world of mental health and what it really is, and the compassion and the safe space that is sometimes missing in churches for those who struggle with these things. But it's been a tough journey. And then last year happened, which was the hardest year of my life. My daughter with other health issues going on, in addition to her anxiety, like we've had other things happening, and I had to take her to the emergency room up in Atlanta, which is 2 hours north of us, because we don't have specialists here that can help with her particular things. And I might sound a little, by side note, I might sound a little vague when I describe her illness and her health, but it's her story too. And a lot of these things are still really tender for her. I have talked with her about what I can and can't share, and I want to honor her with what she's not comfortable making public yet. And she may never want to make it public, and that's totally okay. It's her story, although her story has deeply impacted me in my own journey. She's 17 now, and it's her story to tell when she's ready and if she's ready. But the gist of it is she was very, very sick, very, very sick, more sick than we even realized that day. That I had took her to the ER, and I drove her there, and they ended up admitting her. The doctors said so many things that just kind of hit me unexpectedly of what we were really facing with her. They got her into a room up on the 4th floor, hooked her up to all the heart monitors. We had a nurse in our room full time, 24 hours a day to monitor her. She was really sick. She was more than I could wrap my head around. And that night at the hospital, once she finally fell asleep, and it's the middle of the night, it's like 2 a.m, and it's so dark, literally, and in my heart, it's so dark. Like I couldn't see the next step. I had no idea how the next few hours would unfold, let alone the next few days, weeks, months ahead. And my anxiety, which I had been learning how to manage and recognize, but it became so intense. I didn't know what to do. The physical symptoms were just almost more than I could bear. My heart was racing. I couldn't catch my breath. I was crying, shaking. Wow. I was so scared. I was terrified of what we were about to walk into, and I didn't want to have to do it. I didn't want to have to walk this road. I didn't want to have to sit by my girl as she suffered, as she struggled with things that I couldn't help her with. They were bigger than what I could, as her mom, help her with. I couldn't keep her safe. I couldn't do the things that a mom should do. Like I felt...
Right.
And I felt like through these last few years, I had prayed everything I knew to pray. I had prayed for healing. I had prayed for mercy. I had prayed for all the things, begged God. I can't tell you how many hours I spent on the ground, on my knees, crying out to him to help. And a lot of times it felt like he was so quiet and so silent because it would just get harder and harder and harder. And it's hard to walk that road. And that night it all came to a head, and I was just like, I had nothing left in me, and I had no words to say, no words to pray. I didn't know what to tell God anymore. And at that moment, and I can only explain it, that it was the Holy Spirit, he put in my heart some words of a breath prayer that I had learned a few months before. Breath prayer was something in all my research and trying to find healthy ways to manage anxiety, and breathing exercises were definitely something that have really helped me a lot. But in my research of finding different ideas, I stumbled across the idea of breath prayers, and it intrigued me so much. I had never heard of them before. I wasn't raised with like a big liturgical type practice in church. We didn't do contemplative prayer or anything like that. So all of that was pretty new to me. So breath prayer was like, So it intrigued me. I wrote some down. I prayed a few of them at the time, but it wasn't until now, months later, when I had nothing to pray, God just put that little prayer in my heart, and it's straight from Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I have all that I need. And that is all I could think of. That's the only words I had. And so I started, I'm like, okay. So I took a deep breath in and I prayed, the Lord is my shepherd. And then I breathed out, I have all that I need. And then I did it again. And I inhaled, the Lord is my shepherd. And I exhaled, I have all that I need. And I just kept repeating that to myself. I kept intentionally slowing my breathing, and I could feel the physical symptoms of the anxiety start to calm. And then as I prayed that little prayer, it turned my mind toward the truth in God's word, truth that was bigger than all these emotions and feelings I was feeling, which were so overwhelming. All the uncertainty of what was to come and all the worries and fears of what might happen was overcome by the truth that the Lord is my shepherd and he loves us. Even when it's so dark and we can't see him and we don't understand, he's still there and he's still caring for us. And I have all that I need. I don't need to know how tomorrow's going to work out. I don't need to know how all of this journey is going to go. All I need to know is that I have him, and with him, I have all that I need, because I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know that he holds tomorrow, and he's holding me, and he's holding my daughter too. And so I was able to fall asleep that night with a renewed peace that I had not felt in a long time, just by breathing and then turning my heart to him and then giving it all to him, laying it at his feet, basically, and saying, okay, I don't know what to do with all this. And I don't have any words, but his word gave me words to pray and to cling to in that moment. And now the next day, as the doctors come in and new things are done and tests are run and the fear goes up again and the anxiety goes up again. But I would just, intentionally still slow down, take some deep breaths and pray that little breath prayer over and over. And breath prayer became my lifeline during that hospital stay. I would walk the halls, praying and breathing and praying. And that's how I got through what was the hardest days of my life. We ended up in the hospital for nearly 3 weeks. And then all of last year was full of treatment. And she ended up 16 weeks in very intensive treatment. And 10 of those weeks we were separated from her. I couldn't even visit because of COVID restrictions. And so we could only see her through a screen, which was really, really hard. When you go from being, because we had pulled her out of public school that first year because she couldn't walk in the building because she was having so many panic attacks. So I've been homeschooling her. So we've been together 24 hours a day. So then to go from that to separated for a very long time was really, really hard. And every day, and I had no control. I had no control over how this was going to go. I couldn't make her better. I couldn't heal these things. But I could trust in the one who could and who was holding her. And that no matter, even if the worst of the worst happened, which I had to prepare my heart for, even if the worst happens, I still have God and he still loves us and he's still good and he's still kind. And even when it doesn't feel that way and even when I can't see him and even when I can't even see the next step in front of me, reminding my soul of the truth in his word really just kind of gave me something to cling to. Otherwise I would have lost all hope. I would have, I don't know what I would have done because it was hard enough as it was, as I was just clinging to him. And so anyway, it was during that whole season. Actually, I was literally in the hospital sitting next to her when I got an email from an editor saying they had read my little blog post about breath prayer. When I had first learned about it, I wrote a little thing. I don't write a lot. Every now and then I'll throw something out there. But for whatever reason, whatever reason they had stumbled upon this and said, hey, we think this would make a good book. We think people need to hear about this. Would you be willing to write it? And I said, I don't think I can do that. I'm in the hospital with my daughter. Like literally, we were right in the middle of, I had no idea how long we'd be there and what the next few months would unfold like. And I'm not an author and I'm not a writer. I'm like, I can't write a book. There's no way. But it was in those days I had been praying breath prayers literally through the entire day. They were my lifeline. And so God just wouldn't let me let it go. And it ended up being writing this book that we can talk about later, Breath as Prayer, was really me writing prayers through this really hard journey and through the hardest months of my life. These prayers were birthed out of that. They were the prayers I was praying to get through what I didn't know how to walk through. And I had and I still, to this day, yesterday was one of those days. I'm like, I don't know how to do this, God. I don't know how to walk this, but by clinging to you and trusting that I'll just take the next step and you're going to keep being there with me. And so that's kind of where we were, where we've been, where we are still is just this constant having to turn to him, constant clinging to him. And trusting that he is still working, even though I can't see it. He's still making a way, even though I don't know how. And that someday, even if it's an eternity, we'll see that all of this does work together for our good and for his glory. And I have to trust in the hope in his word, that the promises that he says, even when I don't see it or understand it.
The Nothing is Wasted content library of resources and podcast episodes are made possible by our growing community of members. If you would like to be a part of having a global impact and help people partner with God to take back their stories, consider joining Community Plus for just $20 a month. Your membership comes with access to a course called Position for Redemption, masterclasses taught by our certified coaches, bonus podcast episodes, and Q&As with myself and some of our other special guests. You can get more information and sign up at nothingiswasted.com/community. I look forward to connecting with you further within our Community Plus platform. That was amazing, Jen. No, I mean, the concept of your book, I love the application of the principles that you were talking about right just now within your own story, and how it's experientially the discovery of breath prayers really helped you to navigate that season, and still is continuing to help you navigate that season. And I just love the authenticity of what the book became, that it was just this outpouring of you walking through this, and not some kind of you're not in this posture of, well, let me tell you, I'm an expert. I've been, for 30 years, I've been teaching people how to do breath prayers, and, and so now I'm going to put down all of my, it's like, hey, let me tell you what God revealed to me and what I stumbled upon as we were going through this. But I also love the fact that, we talk often on the Nothing is Wasted podcast about the intersection of psychology and faith. And I mean, even you're talking about bringing in some liturgical contemplative practices, and how there's so much of that is multidimensional when it comes to how God created us, how he created this world to operate. And when we begin to tap into some of those things, and we begin to see, wait, this is how God created these rhythms to work and to operate. And when we misalign from that, then that is where a lot of malady can come into our own soul, into our own body, into our own. But when we align ourselves or realign ourselves with those things out of a trust in the Lord, that his ways are higher than our ways and his ways are the right ways, right? That we begin to start finding wholeness again. And it just speaks again to the fact that, like, this is how God created all these things. I'd love for you to unpack that a little bit, because I'm sure on your journey, as you're like, whoa, how did this work? You probably went in and kind of analyzed a little bit and dove into even some of the reasons why, like scientifically, and, why does this seem to center us, especially in times when we're finding places of anxiety or we're, fraught with worry?
Yeah. And that's one thing that really fascinated me so much about this journey is I think for whatever reason, sometimes we separate science, medical, that side of things from faith and spiritual. We somehow see.
Well, we've been doing it for centuries.
I know, right? We got our body.
I think about Copernicus and
here.
Galileo, and they're like, well, no, the Earth is flat, and it's like, well, no, let's talk about how God's word said that the Earth is round, and this is how God. Science is supposed to be. I've said this over and over. Science should be this discovery of, oh my gosh, this is how God created things to work. Wow, right? It should result in worship. And they're two tied together. So anyways.
Absolutely. Yeah. But
I'm on a soapbox right now.
No, I get on the same one, because we separate them as if science is the enemy over here. And well, faith and spirituality, that's a higher plane. But really, God created our bodies, mind, and soul, all parts of us he made to work very integrated, very interconnected. We can't really separate the body from the spirit, because we live an embodied life. Our soul is embodied. And so caring for our body, which includes caring for our brain, is extremely important to care for this body God's given us. But as I learned about how our body really processes stress and how our body manages anxiety, and we were learning about all kinds of different mental health conditions, and as we walked her through her anxiety disorder, and how that's different than your everyday anxiety, but yet at the same time, a lot of the same strategies can help, and what she needs to help care for her and care for her mental health. And for myself, how I can better care for my own mental health. And that's not a taboo thing. That's not against scripture. That's not caring for my mental health is part of how I can, like you said, you can worship God, because
that's right.
Science really is just revealing what God's already told us. It's just revealing. That's exactly right. It's not contradictory to scripture. It's not contradictory to what God says. It's just us uncovering more deeply the truths of and breath is one of those. Our breathing is one of those things that I have been so fascinated with. I'm like, God, this is just cool, because he gave us our breath. It was God's breath at the very beginning, way back in Genesis. When he breathed into Adam, the breath of life, that's what made Adam a living soul. God's breath. So breath from the very beginning is the source of life. And so without our breath, literally, our bodies will die. We cannot live without the breath. Right. Without the breath of God, our souls die. Without God breathing into us, our souls are not alive. And so the importance and significance of breath is there from the very, very beginning. But it wasn't until I learned how the breath worked in the body that I was like, oh my goodness, God gave us this amazing gift here with our breath that can help us calm our bodies in times of anxiety, in times of fear, because we have this nervous system within us. And I will be the first to say I'm not an expert, and I say that very clearly in my little book. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a doctor, but I have done a lot of research, and we've been under the care of doctors and therapists for years now. So I'm merely repackaging and sharing what I've learned from those who are way smarter than me and know way more than me. But our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, is fascinating. It connects our brain to all the organs in our body and controls all those things that we don't have to think about, like our heartbeat and our breath. A lot of times we don't have to think about breathing. Our body just does it because it's an automatic system.
Right.
Our stress response is one of those automatic systems. Our body reacts to a threat, what's perceived as a threat or danger or stress, in a very automatic way. We have systems set up in our brain. The amygdala, which is sometimes called the emotional brain, will kind of take over and shut down that logic side so we can react.
Right.
And that's where the fight or flight or freeze response comes from. You hear that a lot. But what that really is we have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system as part of that autonomic nervous system. When the sympathetic nervous system gets triggered by whatever your nervous system is perceiving as a threat to you, which is a good thing. Like if you're in the woods and there's a bear in your path, you need to be able to respond without thinking. Like your body reacts to keep you safe. That's the whole goal of our anxiety and our nervous system, keep you safe. And so when it senses a threat or a danger, the sympathetic nervous system kicks in and your heart rate increases, your breathing becomes more rapid, a whole bunch of different things go off in your brain, hormones are released to prepare you to react, to keep you safe. And so when that revs up, it is hard to think logically because your body's just doing what it automatically conditioned to do to respond to that stress or that threat. When we calm down again, the parasympathetic nervous system then kicks in and slows our heart rate, slows our breathing. The amygdala calms down, so then the thinking part of our brain can take over again and we can process things more logically. That's the rest and digest system of our body. And so we have these two systems that God made. These are God created. Neither of these are contrary to what God made. That are
neither one of them are a result of the fall or anything like that.
They're given to us to help regulate and keep us in line, keep our systems regulated no matter what we're facing around us. Now, we are living in a fallen world with bodies that are broken in many different ways and dysregulated a lot. Our bodies aren't functioning the way that God originally intended when he created Adam and Eve because of the entrance of sin, because of the fall. And so a lot of times, like for me, my anxiety revs up for something that really isn't a threat to me. I get nervous and anxious over being in a crowd of people. I get so anxious. I don't know if I have social anxiety or what, but it really is hard for me sometimes to breathe. I get real shaky, sweaty. I thought there was something wrong with me for years. I'm like, why can't I just sit in this Bible study with all these women and not feel absolute panic? It's my anxiety. It's my nervous system kind of dysregulated there saying, oh, you're in danger. We need to do something. You need to get out of here. Really, I wasn't in danger. And so what I learned is that, yes, we have all these automatic things that happen in our body. We can't control our heart rate. Our brain just controls that for us. We can't control our blood pressure. But breathing is one of those parts of our autonomic system that we can control. We can breathe automatically. Usually we don't even think about our breath through the day. It's just something our body does. But we also can do it intentionally. We can consciously control our breathing. We can choose to breathe slow and deep or rapid and shallow. And so when we breathe really fast and shallow, that's part of that sympathetic nervous system saying, oh, something's wrong. We got to prepare to respond. But if we can slow our breathing down, that's tied to those vagus nerves in our body, which is part of the parasympathetic nervous system. And that vagus nerve that's connected to your lungs, it's going to send those signals to the brain saying, oh, they're breathing really slowly. we're okay. You can calm down up there, amygdala, because we're safe. Everything's okay. We don't need to respond right now. And then our thinking side of the brain can take over. Our heart rate slows down. You'll feel physically the symptoms of anxiety begin to calm and ease, because just by slowing your breath, just by breathing intentionally, deeply, and slowly, slowing down, taking a deep breath. I know when my girls were growing up, a lot of times they come running in from outside, really upset and flustered because something had happened out there that upset them or scared them or something. And they're going a mile a minute. They're not making any sense. Like, I can't understand their words. And what do I tell them? Hey, calm down, take a deep breath, and then tell me what's going on. I didn't know back then what I was saying is slow your breathing. That's going to help you calm down enough that you can really talk to me and tell me what's going on. But that's what it's that simple of a thing that we don't think about, but it can be such a powerful tool to help manage anxiety. Now, if you have an anxiety disorder, it might be more complicated than just taking some deep breaths. You may have, like my daughter goes to therapy, and there's all kinds of different tools and strategies she's used. She requires medication, and that's okay, you know, because part of managing her particular illness, her particular disorder, is the need for medication. And there's no shame in that. That's no different than if she had diabetes and I gave her insulin. I would not be ashamed of giving her insulin to help her body do what it's supposed to do. She needs a little extra help for her brain to do what it needs to do. We actually did genetic testing, and there's actually a genetic disformity thing, like something, an extra little thing in there that makes her brain harder to process serotonin. And so she needs a little help with that. And so knowing that, learning the science side of it, and how God made our bodies, and how maybe they're a little dysfunctioned right now, like dysregulated, and how to bring it back in tune, back in alignment, has been such a powerful thing for me, because it helped me let go of the shame that I was holding on to for feeling anxious when I realized, no, this is my body reacting to what it perceives as a threat or stress. Let me calm down and then evaluate, is this really a situation where I need to be worked up over, where I need to spiral into panic, or is this just something that I just need to, calm down, everything's okay, and just redirect my thoughts, redirect my energy towards something positive, and learn how to manage that anxiety in healthy ways, not pushing it down, not hiding it, not denying it. And so learning the science side helped me shed the shame of all of it, and really just kind of tackle it head on and say, okay, I have anxiety, and that's just part of me. And how do I manage that in a way that's going to be healthy for me and my family, but also how can I do it in a way that turns me to God? So my anxiety turned from being something that was a roadblock to my faith, something I felt like I had to get over or figure out, or an enemy that I had to somehow fight and sorry, I hit my microphone. It turned
the microphone
from
is not an enemy, Jen.
I know, right? It turned from being an enemy to actually the thing that actually has been the catalyst that has deepened my faith in ways that are really hard for me to explain. Without my anxiety, I wouldn't have turned to him in these times of, you know, like it is instead of a trigger to spiral me to panic, now it's just a prompt to slow down and turn my mind to Christ and the truth in his word that is more important and bigger than the big feelings that I'm feeling when I feel anxiety. Because our feelings are real, and I don't want to discount our feelings. We need to pay attention to our feelings, because they're telling us something. Something in our body is telling us something. What is my body telling me? But our feelings don't always tell me the truth. Like my anxiety tells me I'm in danger. That's not always the truth. So if I can calm my body and at the same time turn my mind to Christ and truth,
it's good.
I'm not only, we learned breathing is the bridge between the brain and the body. That's how important breathing is. You can literally change your brain and calm your body through how you breathe. And in the same way that breathing is the bridge between the brain and the body, prayer is our bridge from our soul to God. It connects us to our Creator. It connects us back to the one who made us. And so breath work alone and breathing definitely helps calm physical symptoms of anxiety. But prayer is the thing that's going to tap into our soul level and
Yeah, that's
connect
good.
us back to God and help turn our mind toward truth that we can
Right.
count on.
Right.
No matter how we're feeling, no matter our circumstances around us,
Yeah.
there's truth that's deeper that we can tap into. And for me, that's what breath prayer has done, is it kind of brought the two together. It brought the breathing and the science and the how my body works right in line with the spiritual and my soul and how prayer works to connect us to God. And at the same time, I can calm my anxiety and strengthen my faith because I'm turning to Him as I'm calming my, it connects it all.
Right.
It brings it
Right.
all together. And it's God doing it through my breath. And it's an incredible gift that has helped me so much. And so really and it may not help everybody. Breath work, like for my daughter, actually makes her more anxious when she focuses on her breathing. She
Interesting.
gets worried that she's not doing it right. And so then she spirals into
Right.
worrying about
So
that
it becomes
because of her
yeah.
anxiety disorder. And so for her, the breath part of it has not been as helpful for her. And that's okay if you're like that. If you're like, I tried it, that did not work for me. I felt like I was doing it wrong and I was worried about, it didn't calm me. It made me more anxious. Okay, then don't do the breath part. Prayer always helps. Prayer will always help, in my opinion. But in general, breath prayer has helped me so much. And I just, this book is like an offering, like, hey, this helped me. Hey, maybe it'll help you too. Maybe it'll help you connect those dots between your anxiety and helping calm that and your faith and connecting you to God, because it's not in opposition to each other. It's not at all. I think we get this idea with anxiety because there are so many verses that tell us don't be anxious, don't worry, don't be afraid. And for me, I read those verses years ago for so long with a voice of condemnation that God was condemning me if I did feel anxious, that if I was afraid, I'm doing something wrong. But I think walking through what we've walked through these last few years, I've really seen God in a different light. He's our Heavenly Father, and He loves us so much. We are His children. He's our shepherd. We are His sheep. And when He tells us don't be anxious and not to worry, He's not saying it from a voice of condemnation. He's not waiting to strike us down when we're afraid. He's not waiting to call us out when we're anxious and get mad at us. He's our Father. And just like me with my daughter, when she's afraid at night and comes to me scared, or when she's panicky, I don't get mad at her. I'm not going to yell at her. I'm not going to, I wrap her in my arms, literally, and I calm her, and I'm like, it's okay. I'm right here. You're not alone. You're safe. You don't have to be afraid. You don't have to worry. I'm right here with you. And that's what God's saying in those verses. He's wrapping us in His arms and saying, listen, I know you're going to be afraid, and I know you're going to be anxious, and I know you're going to worry, because that's going to be that's part of the human experience.
It's part of the human. Yep, exactly.
But in those times, guess what? Come to me. I'm going to wrap you in my arms. I'm right here with you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm in control. I'm going to work things out. You don't have to worry. You don't have to be anxious. You don't have to be afraid, because I'm here. And when I shifted how I saw those verses, and I shifted how I saw God speaking to me, it changed everything. Again, the shame and guilt about it went away, and it became the prompt just to turn me to Christ. God's just saying, hey, when you feel this way, I'm inviting you to have peace by coming to me, by inviting me into that struggle, by letting me come and hold you. Let me come and remind you of what is true and real, even though you're feeling all these feelings. Let me tell you what is true in the midst of all of that.
Right.
And so that's been a powerful shift for me, especially as this journey's been so long and so enduring and so seemingly never ending. I think anytime an illness or pain or suffering lingers long, it's really easy to lose hope and get discouraged and wonder if God even hears. And when the healing doesn't come, when the pain doesn't end, when that thing you want so badly to get better doesn't get better.
Right.
Does that mean God doesn't hear me? Does that mean I'm not praying right? Does that mean I'm doing something wrong? No, that just means you're human. And part of living this life is suffering. And Jesus never
Yeah.
promised us a life free of suffering. He said, in this world you
Right.
will have trouble. In this world you will suffer. But don't lose
Right.
heart, because I've overcome the world. So that but so important. We will
Yeah.
endure this suffering, but he's with us in it. And even if
Right.
it's long during, and even if it feels like it's never going to end, and reality is it may not end this side of heaven. It may, some people, and I don't know why. I don't know why some people have to suffer more, longer. Some people endure such pain and so many hard things. I don't know why. But I know that one day, someday, even if it's not this side of heaven, there will be healing, and God will make all things new, and all the wrong things will be made right. And that's the hope that we can cling to and trust that even if we have to keep walking this hard path, we're not walking it alone. And so that's kind of shifted things for me, because for a long time, I really fought this journey we're on. I'm like, I don't want to walk this. God, just heal it. Just take care of it. I just wanted it to be over. I just wanted to get on with life already. I wanted to get back to what we had planned and what we thought, how we thought things were going to unfold. At the beginning of this journey 4 years ago, we actually were planning on moving to Denver, Colorado to help plant a church. We had committed to we had friends who were moving there to plant a church. And we were like, yeah, we want to be on that team. We really felt God calling us to do that, which would have been a huge shift. We've lived in Georgia forever. My girls have never known anywhere but here. But we were committed we even traveled to Denver that summer before my daughter got sick. The first time we traveled there, we were scouting out houses. Like, we had a plan. We even bought a 4-wheel drive car so we could drive up the mountains. Like, we really were like, we're going to act in faith. We're going to take these steps in faith, trust that God's going to work it out and he's going to make that way. But my husband he couldn't get a job. He applied to so many places and everything fell through. And we thought, okay, well, maybe it's just the timing. Maybe we just have to wait. But then Lily started having panic attacks. And then that just spiraled and at the same time, we're trying to make this other plan work. We're trying to say, no, God, you said this. We thought this was how it was going to go. We thought this was going to be the challenge. Never expected this to be our challenge. This wasn't supposed to be the journey. No. So how do we get through this so we can get on with what we thought was supposed to be the plan? I've learned that that's not how it works. And that I can make all my plans, but God knows what's best. And so this journey may not end. We may keep walking this, and we may have to walk it for a really long time. But I've accepted that now and realized, okay, things aren't unfolding the way I dreamed or hoped or planned. But that doesn't mean it can't be good right here, even in the middle of it. That doesn't mean he's not still there. In fact, I think we've grown so much through these hard things. He just keeps shaping us in the waiting. He keeps molding us and keeps whittling down all the things, all the fluff and stuff, all the stuff we like to cover up to make ourselves look all pretty and we have it all together. When all that gets knocked away, you realize what's really there. And that core and that foundation has become so much more precious to me. I don't care about all that fluff and stuff anymore. I'm like, no, I got Jesus. He really is all that I need.
He's the prize. That's so good. Wow. All that I need. Jenn, I'm sure there's someone who's listening to this, watching this on YouTube, and they're going, I hear you, Jenn. I hear what you're saying in terms of, okay, the breath thing, maybe I should try that. Prayer, you said that prayer always really helps to regulate and center my soul. I've tried prayer and it just doesn't seem to work. I mean, I've heard this. I've tried asking God to take away my anxiety. It doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Speak to that a little bit, because, when I hear someone say that, I totally understand where they're coming from. And I'm like very, empathetic too, to say, I know that's got to be so difficult to feel like you're crying out to God, asking God to take something away from you, and it's not working, so to speak. But that is also a unidimensional approach to prayer. What would you say to that person who would be kind of like objecting with you a little bit about prayer and breath and stuff because of their experience?
I'd say I have been right there too. And I've prayed those same prayers and thought God wasn't hearing me. I must not be praying right or trusting him enough, or my faith must not be strong enough, because why am I still struggling even though I pray? And these last 4 years, I've prayed so many prayers begging God for the outcome I wanted, for the things to go the way I thought were best, for healing. Now, can God work miracles? Can he heal? Could he remove my anxiety tomorrow if he wanted to? Absolutely. He's all powerful. He could do anything. Why does he choose not to? Why doesn't he do all those things? Why doesn't he answer every prayer the way we ask it? Those are big questions. Those are hard questions, and they're hard to live out in that waiting, to keep trusting him even when you don't see him, when you can't hear him, when he feels utterly silent. I have been there. I have walked through months and months of feeling like, God, are you even hearing me? And I've said those words to him, and I've gotten angry with him because he hasn't healed my girl the way I wanted him to. Yeah. It's not fair. It's not right. She shouldn't have to suffer with these things. She shouldn't have to struggle the way she does. Let me have it, God. Give it to me. Take it from her. Let her have a good, happy life. Don't put this on her, on a 13-year-old, on a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not fair, God. And I think every parent who's had a kid who's had some kind of major illness or condition has felt the same way, has cried out the same thing. We don't understand God's ways. We don't understand why he doesn't answer the way we want him to. And that's really the core of it. We want him to. We pray with this expectation of an outcome that we expect, and not with open hands accepting, like Jesus did, even when, in the garden, when he said, God, if it be your will, take this from me. He prayed for it to be taken, but not your will, not my will, but your will be done.
Right.
And when we pray that way, he always answers our prayers. We may not like it. We may not understand it. And it may feel like he's abandoned us, but that's why focusing on truth that is bigger than our feelings and clinging to that and the hope in his word. If we trust his word is true, then we can trust his promises will be fulfilled, and we can lean into that. His timing is not like ours. His ways are not like ours. We can't see what he sees. We have a tiny little puzzle piece we're holding of a giant, thousands of pieces puzzle that he is orchestrating and working a masterpiece out of. And all we see is this tiny little piece that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. And it might be totally black and totally dark, and we don't see any way out.
Right.
But God sees what we can't, and he knows what we don't. And trusting him means trusting that he may not answer my prayers the way that I want him to. Do I still pray them? Absolutely. We still pray because he does hear our prayers. And prayer is not so much to get what we want, our desired outcome, as it is to align our soul with his will and share our burdens, give him those burdens, give him our wants, give him our desires. And at the same time, trust, okay, God, I will accept. You know what I want. You know what I'm asking. You know what I'm begging for. And if you give me that answer, I will praise you. If you don't give me that answer, I will praise you still. And that's the hard part about it. But that's, again, where you get down to that real nitty gritty of your faith. Do you really trust God when you can't see, when he feels so silent? Do you really still hold on to him in those times? Because that's when you find out really what your faith is grounded in. Right. And so, I would say keep praying. Don't give up. Keep turning to him. Keep seeking him. He is there with you. And you can, the more you do that, the more you keep turning to him. And I found the more I respond to my anxiety and my fears by slowing down, taking some deep breaths, and turning my mind to Christ, the more I do that, the more automatic it becomes, number one. So now if I start feeling anxious, I just automatically, I need to stop, and I'll turn my mind to some truth I've tucked away in my heart. Yeah. And that becomes more of my automatic response rather than spiraling into panic. But also, the more I do that, the more the Holy Spirit works. I mean, and the Bible tells us he's given us his Holy Spirit, who is renewing our mind day by day as we follow him. Literally, as we breathe and as we train our brains to react to things in different ways, and we make new pathways in our brain. We literally are changing our brain. We're rerouting those neurons. Like, there's science behind that is so fascinating. Like, when we create, that's how we create new habits in our life. That's how we create we memorize things. Our brain's making new connections, new pathways. We forge new ways. You can do that, but it takes intentionality and it takes consistency over time. And God's doing that in our brain. Like, that, to me, that's just that's a picture of what the Holy Spirit's doing. He's literally remaking us from the inside out. It doesn't happen overnight, and it's not a quick fix. And the healing you want may not come, but the one you need, you always get. And so the miracle, and I've prayed for so many miracles, and I know God can work amazing. He does every day. Every day around the world, there are miracles happening. Just maybe not the one that I wanted, the one I begged for. Right. But we always get the miracle we need most, because we always get his presence with us through it all. And if we can, sometimes when I wrap my head around, I have these moments where I can wrap my head kind of around that, and it's overwhelming that God himself is with me through this. I'm not walking this alone. That in and of itself brings a comfort that is really hard to explain, because it comes from him. It only comes from him. And so I would say to people who are struggling and don't think this will work, just try and just trust him. Don't make it about, it's not about that desired outcome. It's about connecting to your creator and
that's great.
Opening your hands up to whatever he gives.
That's great.
It's hard, but that's where that's where that change comes.
Right. And that's where a peace comes from. Yeah. You know, scripture calls it a peace that passes all understanding will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. That comes right after talking about be anxious for nothing. Right. It also comes right after talking about what our minds are to be focused on. Right. If anything is good, pure, excellent, praiseworthy, focus on such things, think about such things. And so scripture's giving us the blueprint for how we are to live in this fallen world as fallen beings, to realign ourselves with the rhythms of Christ. And I love that you mentioned, you talked about those neural pathways that are being reformed or renewed. And I just thought about 2 Corinthians 4:16, therefore we do not lose heart, though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. And it can feel like a very long, arduous journey at times. Scripture talks about the idea of long suffering, as you've alluded to earlier, and yet it's a day by day occurrence. Romans 12:2 talks about, it says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." So this is our journey, friends. As you're listening to Jenn talk about this, as you're wrestling through your own untangling of trauma or tragedy that's going on in your life, anxiety, depression, whatever it is. This is a daily journey of sanctification with Christ where we're being renewed day by day. Most of the time, Jenn, I've not heard a lot of people say they prayed and snap, poof, God healed them from these kinds of maladies. That happens occasionally. Absolutely it does. Praise God for those stories, right? But for most of us, it is a day by day, being renewed day by day. And we wind up down, years down the road looking back going, wow, look how far God has brought me. Look how faithful he has been.
Yeah.
And I think that is how your story has unfolded and is continuing to unfold. And I'm so grateful for you to, just the courage and the for you to share this vulnerably with us. I mean, and sharing it with the world through this book that you've released. And it's just, I can't imagine how difficult that is in the middle of it to be like, man, we're still in the throes of this, guys, and we're trying to figure this thing out. And yet here I'm offering what that takes a whole lot of courage, and I'm so grateful for it. And yet God is doing something in you so that it can be revealed to the world. And so I appreciate you sharing all of this. I appreciate you spending time with us and everything that you're doing, Jenn. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, so where can we learn more about you? Where can we follow what you're doing? We're going to make sure that we put a link on the show notes here for folks to get a copy of your book. But where else can we just kind of follow along? Because I know that the journey is still going for you, but I know that God is doing a whole lot, and you've got a message to carry and to share with folks, and people want to tune in.
Yeah, well, the easiest place to go is breathasprayer.com. That's the book page. And from there, that's on my website. So you can just go to the homepage, and then you can find me on Twitter, or not Twitter. Well, I am on Twitter, but I don't do anything on Twitter. Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, Twitter.
I was going to make a lot of
scroll
Twitter
and read,
jokes
but I don't
right there,
do
but I'll
anything
just filter that out.
Yeah.
Aren't we all on Twitter and we don't do anything there
Oh my
anymore?
gosh,
Right?
yeah, I just scroll. Like, let's see what drama's happening today. No, but yeah. Yeah, I share mostly on Instagram, and I'll share over to Facebook sometimes, but Instagram's kind of my main thing.
Okay.
So it's Jenn _ Little House Studio, because that's my little business name.
Okay.
But yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll put all those links in the show notes here so you guys can easily access those. And Jenn, thank you so much for spending time with us. This has just been so, refreshing, enlightening. You stirred me up. So thank you. And I know you've stirred up so many of our listeners as they're listening to this. And so this is such a prevalent issue. Everybody, there's so many folks who are wrestling with anxiety, and a lot of people are struggling silently with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I appreciate you just bringing this out to the open and saying it's important to learn about this, to learn about why you are struggling with anxiety, right? To kind of step back and gain a perspective and get a 30,000 foot view of it, gain some distance. And then like what you said, it empowers you, it gives you agency to tackle it head on and go, okay. And by the power of the Holy Spirit, same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead, he lives in me. And so we can overcome this too. It might be a day by day thing, but we can overcome this as well. So thanks for that reminder. This has been just such a sweet time.
Thank you so much.
Hey friend, if you liked this episode, be sure to like and subscribe so that you can stay in the loop every time Nothing is Wasted releases a piece of content here on this YouTube channel.